Dario Argento's 1977 film Suspiria is widely considered one of the best Italian horror films, or giallos, of all time, with vibrant colors, a haunting score, and trance-like visuals that made audiences experience something, even if they had no idea what exactly that something was. The mere thought of anyone remaking it was enough to make people skeptical. However, for director Luca Guadagnino, the daunting task only excited him, as the experience of the original compelled him from a young age to someday bring to life his own version, and I very much mean his own. This is precisely why Guadagnino's adaptation of said material is masterful, because it isn't a straight-up remake, but rather, as the director himself put it, a cover of the feeling invoked by Argento's original work, paying homage to the director's own experience he had at 14. And while Guadagnino does leave audiences with that same impactful feeling, 2018's Suspiria couldn't be any more different from its predecessor, acting as almost the anti-giallo to the film that redefined what exactly a giallo is. Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to Men vs. Movies. I'm Griffin, as always. If this is your first time checking out one of our videos, consider hitting that subscribe button where we take on the best and worst of cinema on a weekly basis. And today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be doing a more analytical review of Suspiria. This is a film that really stuck with me, and I want to dive deep into all its juicy goodness. Sure, that's a word. So Luca Guadagnino, hot off his Academy Award nominated film Call Me By Your Name, is the man behind this reimagining of the 1977 Italian horror classic Suspiria, and this adaptation stars Dakota Johnson, Tilda Swinton, Mia Goth, and Chloe Grace Moretz. Taking place in a post-World War II Berlin during the late 70s, the film centers in on a young American dancer named Susie Banyan, as she auditions for the world-renowned Helena Marcos dance company. Susie soon finds herself catapulted into the role of lead dancer, winning over the company's female directors, but there may be something far more sinister afoot, as an inquisitive psychotherapist and a member of the troupe uncover the studio's dark secrets. Ironically enough, with a Halloween sequel currently in theaters and its director, who was actually attached to the remake of Suspiria for quite some time, but I digress, let's get back on track. Recent horror films have largely moved away from the influence of American horror masters such as Wes Craven and John Carpenter. Instead, with films like Apostle, Hereditary, It Comes at Night, The Neon Demon, and even The Witch to some extent, the influence of Italian giallos in modern horror has never been more present, embracing the ambiguous surrealism of the subgenre. It's with that trend in mind that Luca Guadagnino's remake of Suspiria is not only able to capitalize on the timeliness of the genre influence, but allows it to flourish as well. Fittingly so, Suspiria is able to set itself ahead of the pack through the same delicious ambiguity that gripped viewers back in 1977. It makes you long for a second, hell, even third helping to truly consume all the film has to offer. Suspiria constantly builds intrigue through its methodical tempo and clever allegories for heavy and timely themes, yet, in true giallo's form, refuses to outright give you the answers. The end result is almost akin to examining an impressionist painting, one that's so mesmerizing you can't take your eyes off it. And like any form of impressionist art, Suspiria is absolutely not for everyone, and I emphasize not here. Many will grow tired and frustrated with its 2.5 hours of ambiguous slow burn.
Okay, why don't we all break for 10 minutes?
And others, on the other hand, will be enamored by every second of it. I can only speak for myself, and personally, I couldn't get enough of it. Instead of reaching for low-hanging fruit with an easy scare, Guadagnino slowly and uncomfortably works his way underneath your skin, not only with unrelenting and disturbing imagery, just wait for the finale, but with genuine mystery. Because we as audience members have subconsciously become accustomed to the giallo influence through the films I mentioned earlier, it's fascinating that the remake of one of the most famous giallos of all time acts as almost the anti-giallo, using the aforementioned subgenre as window dressing for what is actually a provocative social commentary. For all the snap zooms and copious amounts of blood, Guadagnino's Suspiria is cold and rainy, putting forth a dreary and oddly noir-esque mood. The vibrant and neon colors of traditional giallos are truthfully nowhere to be seen in this palette of muted tones. The score by Radiohead's Thom Yorke is eerie, yes, but hypnotically melancholy at the same time, and in so doing is the exact opposite of the classic Goblin score, which is remarkably abrasive. Quick side note, can we just set the precedent that all 90s alt-rock bands should transition into film scoring? I mean, we've got Thom Yorke and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross from Nine Inch Nails. What the hell is next? Like Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters? Don't laugh, you know it's bound to happen eventually. The setting and time period in which the film takes place also should not be overlooked. While Dario Argento's original film is rather timeless in its look and presentation and could truthfully take place anywhere, Guadagnino's Suspiria is purposefully set in 1977 Berlin, the same year the original was released, amidst a post-World War II Cold War. During an interview with Bild, the director himself even stated,
"The experience of the movie by Dario is, as you said, an experience that can be, like the movie can be set everywhere and anywhere. And but it's the child of its times, and it's a child of a place and time that was really conflictual and filled with anger and violence. So we decided with David that maybe that was a good clue to understand how to create a new and more personal film than replicating what was done by Dario."
The film fittingly mirrors the story of this dance troupe to the civil unrest, violence, and uncompromising nature of the time period, interweaving news segments of a war-torn Berlin in the process of healing, yet remaining a victim to attempts at reigniting the old flame. To some, this interweaving of the outside world may appear to be an intrusion, bringing the central narrative to a bit of a halt, but its relevance could not be more important, as it's a through line that carries into the main story and even into the arcs of several characters, with the most obvious being that of concentration camp survivor Dr. Josef Klemperer. This theme, illustrated by our backdrop of 70s Berlin, could even be taken another step further and applied to the current state of political divisiveness in our society today. In fact, I'll go as far as to say that that was very much the intent of director Luca Guadagnino. Speaking of relevant intent, Guadagnino also addresses the Me Too and Time's Up movement through his empowerment of the film's strong and largely predominant female cast. There are several examples to point to in regards to this, as it's easily the clearest takeaway from the film. Hell, he even cast Tilda Swinton, under very convincing prosthetics I might add, as the main male character in the film. But for me, I need not look any further than the film's aggressively contemporary dance sequences. Once again, acting as the anti-Giallo, Suspiria is a rather sexless film that, instead of exploiting female sexuality, flips that notion on its head, turning it into female empowerment. And this is especially true in terms of its dance choreography. Instead of choreographing a lustful and highly sexual performance, the choreographers approach the dance as if it were a fight. Every move is fierce, punctual, hell, almost primal at times. The dancers snap their bodies into place with every note of Yorke's hypnotic track, Volk. The energy of the dance is so palpable to the point where I never wanted it to end. I was completely transfixed on every precise movement, and the performers clearly had the audience in the palm of their hands. Now that's power. While another director may have overly choreographed these sequences, both from a dance and filmmaking perspective, Guadagnino ensures that everything feels holistic and real. He doesn't force the power of the performance. The performers themselves express their power naturally, lending to a stronger impact. But outside of the actual dances themselves, Dakota Johnson delivers her best performance to date, performing expert choreography, and Tilda Swinton is as exceptional as always. The two truly shine though when they're together, making for some of the more demanding and intense scenes, illustrating the strong dynamic between student and master. And sure, much of that has to do with fantastic choreography, but I would argue Guadagnino's dynamic camera movements and meticulous editing paired with the free-flow, expressive body movements lend it to a much more effective dance, especially when it's interspliced with graphic scenarios taking place elsewhere in the studio. However, perhaps the biggest takeaway from Guadagnino's Suspiria is how it's wholeheartedly a completely different film from its forefather, or I guess mother? While the original Suspiria was praised for its electric and lavish style, it was also considered more style than substance, and that couldn't be further from the 2018 remake. Sure, Guadagnino brings a lot of style and excellent cinematography to the table, but it all feels subtle and underplayed, which matches perfectly with the mood already in place. His Suspiria is a film with much to say, yet he wants the audience to piece it together for themselves and examine the details in fine fashion. It's what makes this film so rich, and it's one of the reasons why it sticks with you far after leaving the theater. Yeah, the film has its issues. There's questionable casting and creative choices that ever so slightly remove you from the narrative. However, its deeply thought-provoking context far outweigh its shortcomings and make for an experience I want to go back to again and again. Much like how Argento's classic moved Guadagnino, Guadagnino's Suspiria has consumed my headspace and left what I can only imagine to be the same profound and obsessive effect that was left on young 14-year-old Luca. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria is my favorite film of 2018. And now I want to hear from you all. I want to know your thoughts on 2018 Suspiria down in the comments section below. This is going to be a very divisive film. A lot of people are going to love it. A lot of people are not going to like it. But that's the beauty of cinema. It's all subjective. And I know this is a very different kind of video, so thanks for watching it and testing it out. Hopefully you all saw the amount of time and research I put into making this video. If there are other films that affect me in a similar manner, I would very much be interested in doing more of these. So be sure to let me know your thoughts on the video down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your feedback. As always, be sure to like this video, share with your friends, and subscribe to this channel where we take on the best and worst of cinema on a weekly basis. You can also like Men vs. Movies on Facebook, follow us on Twitter simply by searching Men vs. Movies, and lastly, guys, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right. That's going to do it for this review/analysis of Suspiria. And until next time, take care.
I think audiences are much more intelligent than marketing departments.